Welcome to Weekend Grill, episode number 4. We are live. We've survived a month, AD. We're here. Paul Sebastiani, Adrian Daniher. A very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever or whenever you are listening to this. We've got a big one today. Geez, I'll tell you what, it's funny. The on-field stuff is always going to make headlines, but the off-field stuff, it doesn't stop, does it? No. It does not stop. So
usually takes centre stage.
It does usually take centre stage. It's going to take centre stage here. Now, we're going to be focusing on this week. Of course, look, Sydney and maybe New South Wales from an AFL perspective don't get a lot of coverage down here in Victoria, but, you know, they still do, obviously. But there's a bit going on with the Swannies. A little bit of hypocrisy going on with the corporation itself. A bit of off-field news that we need to get into. So we'll get stuck into that. Jack Crisp, he's had a bit to answer for in the last couple of days, a poor bugger. Joey Daniher, you've got a bit to say about the young forward up there at Lionsland. Okay. Carlton's form. We're going to answer whether or not their form is a myth or not. And the Harry McKay, initial suspension and the decision that the MRO made after that. Another injury as well, announced by media before a club. So I want to probe you on that too. And then a big round 5 preview. Geez, where does the season go?
Well, here we are.
Round 5.
Almost middle of April, heading into May and round 5 and
when the Saints go marching in.
Yeah.
4 and
6.
Rising
star.
Yeah, rising star. Who'd have thought? Let's get on to the elephant in the room that has not been addressed by the AFL, has not been addressed by Sydney, has not been addressed by any media. But that's why we're here.
That's
because
right.
we're independent media and we can go after
right.
whoever and whenever we want.
We don't have handlers.
No, we don't have handlers.
Tell us what to say and what not to say.
Now, the Sydney Football Club, AD.
Yeah.
Now, we had a lovely little discussion about this prior to coming on air. And now the socials, they didn't really go into overdrive. But we picked up on that. And a few people did as well. Probably should be getting a little bit more attention than it should.
Yeah, so last week, something that caught my eye, obviously, after we recorded last week's show, was a tweet put out by the Sydney Swans in regards to sports betting sponsors.
Right.
To put it in a polite way, there is a form of hypocrisy there and a double standard.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, which we're going to deep dive into. So, for those that aren't aware, what happened was Sydney put out an advert on Twitter in regards to, in conjunction with the New South Wales government for sports betting sponsors and how they are saying no to it. This comes after Gil McLachlan, Peter V'landys, a couple of CEOs and head honchos at some online gambling companies were grilled by the government as part of, something to be seen that will seem to be doing something right.
Yes, correct. Yes.
And the problem I have with this, Paul Sebastiani, is as we said, the hypocrisy shown by the Sydney Swans and their ability to park their selective morality and put it to the side when the moment serves. So,
exactly.
Everyone knows that Sydney are sort of entrenched in that pride and LGBTQA plus all that sort of stuff, and good on them. They're happy to take a stance, and they're in this scenario they're seen to be doing something socially responsible and saying no to sports betting.
So
sponsors.
They've got 2 socially responsible things that they are trying to put out into the ether.
Correct.
The whole pride thing, which is great, and the whole sports betting thing.
Absolutely.
We don't want any advertising and sponsorship.
Yeah, okay. I mean, people can agree and disagree with either or. That's fair enough. Everyone's entitled to their opinion.
Fine.
But here's the thing, Paul Sebastiani. One of their major sponsors is Qatar Airways. Now, do we need to get into the morals and the ethics of Qatar and that country and what they are doing over there and how they treat certain individuals?
Well, let me tell you, the only rainbows over there are the ones that are in the sky.
Yeah.
They're not in the street.
And now
I'll give you the tip.
This is where the issue is. So they're happy to accept money and funding off Qatar Airways. At the $1 million sponsorship.
At the multi-million-dollar sponsorship,
correct.
Of course.
But at the same time, they want to sort of be against AFL sports betting sponsors, which drive a lot of revenue and a lot of turnover for the AFL, which people won't realise. And so that we sort of have a little bit of an issue with that. So I mean, look, I think Sydney Swans are should be embarrassed, if you ask me.
I agree. I
know they want to be
agree.
seen to be doing the correct thing.
I
But
agree.
I mean, perhaps they can explain their policy and their standards and ethics to an LGBTQ plus supporter of theirs, because
Exactly.
at the moment they might seem to be doing one thing right, but
Yep.
if people really want to critique them, they're so entrenched in that pride thing, but they're happy to get money from an airline that's basically backed by a country that does not support the LGBTQ
it's
community.
illegal. It's illegal over there. It's illegal over there.
Yeah.
What I don't understand is that, not I don't understand, but what's that saying? You can't have your cake and eat it too. Is that the saying?
You can't. It's a two-way street.
Like having 2 licks of the ice cream.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's what they're doing.
Absolutely. And the thing is, Paul, right? Like, what we need to also mention, just so the public are aware, if they're not aware, is the amount of money that the AFL gets from online sports betting sponsors. So people may or may not realise this, but every dollar wagered on the AFL via an online a site,
online
the AFL is getting a percentage of that, and that money is used for whatever it may be. It may be used for funding for junior footy. It may be used for ticket pricing and all that sort of stuff. So Gil McLachlan was quizzed about it, and Gil McLachlan specifically said, like, we will take a turnover hit if we completely get rid of online sports betting. If we don't advertise it, like our funding's going to take a hit, and I don't think people realise that.
Nope.
So the reality is, the harsh reality is for a lot of people who are against sports betting sponsors is with not that we need them, not sitting here saying that we need them, but the amount of money that would dry up without them.
Oh, ridiculous.
So
the AFL will bleed.
Yeah, and then who ends up wearing the cost? It's the consumer. It's us.
Exactly.
It's the fans. So those $25 or $30 tickets to the footy, you can kiss them by.
Yes.
The $5 pies at Marvel or whatever they are, you can kiss that goodbye.
Good night, Irene.
The beers are going to get more, and this is going to get more, and your membership's going to get more, and the rent that the clubs have to pay to these venues is going to get higher. So what is it you want?
I know.
You got to get your priority.
Exactly.
We've got to live in the real world here and realise that, look, you may or may not agree with a lot of things, but the harsh reality is revenue from outside sources is important to the AFL.
Yeah, I agree.
So just to wrap it up on that particular topic, my advice to Sydney would be to get your orders in a fair, and it's not Flinders Lane here, it's Flinders Street. It's a two-way street. You got to be real, yeah. So look, as much as you want to be seen to do the right thing, you also don't want to be seen to be embarrassing, because at the moment I found that tweet, and we'll get it up if we can. I found that tweet
hypocritical. But how can it not be?
It made them look silly.
How could it not be? I'm surprised no one has actually gone.
There is
to
one
town
person, and I want to shout out Ralph Horowitz on Twitter.
It's a good man, Ralphie.
Racetrack Ralphie.
Shout
if you're
out to
watching,
Ralphie.
he probably doesn't
Hello,
watch,
Ralphie.
but he's one of the.
I'll send him the link.
He's one of the only ones that did point it out. But no one else has actually mentioned it. And look, I have a sneaky suspicion for the particular reason why no one's mentioned it. I'm not going to get into it, but as I said at the start, we don't have any handlers.
Use your imagination.
We don't have people telling us what we can and what we can't say.
Exactly.
So we'll leave it at that.
All right, we'll leave it at that.
Have you got any last thoughts on it?
I'll keep it at this. A famous wrestler, The Rock, once said, "Know your role and shut your mouth."
Sure.
I'll leave it at that.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
Okay. Next cab off the rank. While we're in the mode of having a dip, Joe Daniher made headlines earlier. Well, it was
2 weeks ago.
It was before the Collingwood game.
Yeah, against the Bulldogs.
It was after the Bulldogs game.
Yeah.
And he had an absolute stinker against the Dogs. Mind you, Brisbane had an absolute stinker against the Bulldogs. And then they pulled a rabbit out the hat. Well, maybe not pulled a rabbit out the hat, but they were much better against Collingwood. But Joey himself decided that he was going to put himself under a media ban because he wasn't too happy with the criticism, I don't think.
Yeah. So, here we are. We have a grown adult, Joe Daniher, who's got a wealth of experience. He's been in the system for more than 7, 8 years. He's been in the line. He's been at the Lions for 3 years.
Yeah.
He was the recipient of some form of criticism by the media after his performance against the Bulldogs, as were a lot of his team. And it got to last Thursday night, Easter Thursday after that Collingwood game, and lo and behold, I was watching the TV and I heard a comment, something along the lines of Joe Daniher has refused to speak to the media. Now, let me tell you now, Joe Daniher, mate, you've kicked 92 goals in 47 games. You're barely averaging 2 goals a game at the Lions. If you sit there and you walk out on the field and don't perform and expect to not to be asked questions,
of course,
or not to be criticised, you're living in fantasy world.
Of course, I know.
Grow up.
Absolutely.
Fair income. Grow up. You're a grown adult, right? You went to Brisbane to escape the limelight of Melbourne, or for one of many other reasons.
Mm-hmm.
You're a big forward. Whenever you're on the field, you seem to be or try and act like a highlight reel with all your
antics, high flying and kicking around the body,
all of those theatrical gestures and all that sort of shit. So don't be at the slightest of shock when it comes to the media criticising or someone questioning your performance.
Yes,
that you're the first one to be asked. And then to come out after a win and then, I don't want to speak to the media because you're having a little sook like a little boy, a petulant little boy.
Petulant child.
Like, come on, mate, grow up.
I think what I find funny in that scenario as well.
It's actually embarrassing.
I find it's almost not to the degree that Sydney did it, but I find it hilarious that he doesn't want to speak to the media yet. It's the media who have funded the AFL to the tune of billions of dollars. Channel 7, broadcasting deals.
That help pay his
wages.
A better deal.
Right, that help pay his wages, right, and salary.
Absolutely.
But he doesn't want to have a chat to him.
Yeah.
Why don't you? You know why? Because he knew he played like. He knew he played like
no, because he's sitting there
he
wants to sit there putting his walls up, his feet up, stomping his feet to the ground, basically taking a stand and not happy.
Take responsibility for your poor performance.
And I'll be honest, I look at that, and to me, I don't want to judge an individual because I don't know him personally, but I look at that and that tells me a lot about the individual.
Oh, I completely agree.
It tells me that when it gets a bit hard, you want to curl your toes.
Oh, mate.
You want to chuck a tantrum.
Absolutely.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
The week before the Collingwood game, it was all about him. On the field against the Bulldogs, he was trying to score goals from 60 out, burning teammates.
All his theatrical gestures that we alluded to, he does leave himself open to not necessarily being a target because the reality is a lot of his teammates that game were poor.
Correct.
He's not the only one, but he is one of the main focal points in that forward line, and he was recruited there to kick goals. And as I said earlier, harsh reality is this is a key forward that's played 92 or 93 games at Brisbane. He's played 47 games at Brisbane and he's kicked 92 goals. You're a key forward. You can't even average 2 goals, mate.
I think
get real. Come on, man.
There's a moment where you have to put your pride and ego to one side and accept the fact that you are going to be criticised for poor performance. Don't take it personally.
Some people do. Other people want happy to bounce back and happy to front up.
Don't take it personally. The best thing to do is just put your hand up, say, "Yep, play poorly, cop my whack." Move on to Collingwood. And look, he was okay against the Pies. He was not too bad, but
you got to move on.
Yeah.
I think as professional athletes, you get paid a substantial amount of 100%. Money to be a professional on and off the field. Well, Joe Daniher, start acting like one.
I completely agree.
Like seriously,
Completely agree. Another individual, we'll just touch on it, but thankfully, now Jack Crisp, there was some strange images and videos that came up earlier in the week as well from, and this is the thing that perturbs me in these type of moments, as media and as reporters and as journalists, you have to be so careful as to how you report these things because no one knows all the evidence. No one knows what's going on.
Sure.
Let it all play out before you have an opinion. People were sacking Jack Crisp with all these images coming out. Oh, typical Collingwood, blah, 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 blah. He's got to go. Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
When were those images circulated? Who provided those images? Are they fake? We don't know.
I'm actually on Jack Crisp.
So am I.
I always, or since it got made known to me, I have been citing with the play here.
Yep.
And what I wanted to mention was, firstly, I was happy to see him play last Thursday night, considering the news broke on Wednesday.
Absolutely.
Wednesday night?
Yeah.
Or last Thursday, whatever it is. I'm also very happy, and I'm big on this. I'm happy that the club and his coach got on the front foot and supported him. Spot on. For me, if I was a player, that vote of confidence would do me the world of good. I got the inkling that Collingwood was at some stage made aware of those.
Yes.
The impression that I got was they figured at some stage that it would arise. And I think I could sort of see that with the way that Collingwood spoke. They sort of had an idea that there was something of this nature lurking and they were waiting for it to be released. And the AFL's decision yesterday to, not sanction him like most assume was a strong, and this is important, it was a strong and it was a direct message to the parties involved for future references that hope to hold on to something and use it against the player.
Yeah.
You can't extort.
Exactly.
You can't use this against you at a later date when you choose, because the reality is everyone wants to bring you down when you're at your highest.
Spot on.
Don't get me wrong, no disrespect to Jack Crisp, but in 2007 or 2018 when these images were allegedly sent, right, he wasn't at his highest point. Now the team's flying. I know Collingwood did make a grand final in 2018.
Correct.
But, now at a personal level, he's got the 2 kids, he's got his wife and all that. People want to bring him down.
Exactly.
And I am so glad that the AFL did not do anything and Collingwood didn't sanction him.
Yep.
Right. Obviously, he's got to do some counselling and all that sort of stuff, and that's great. And he mentioned he's trying to improve as a person. But a direct and strong message to future perpetrators that, okay, just because you might have what you think is as ransom sort of evidence or some form of dirt on a player, that you can't pick and choose when you want to use it. So shame on you for those people.
And it's a message to all people on social media, to all journalists, to all investigative journalists who obviously they're all well trained in how to handle these situations.
Yeah.
Innocent until proven guilty. Yeah. Just wait. Wait for the story to unfold. Don't shoot from the hip. Let it all unfold and then go from there. So let's just call the Jets with all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad they actually figured it out and didn't actually bury
They basically brushed it off. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that it should be used as an example for future players to go do what they want to do.
Of course, it's not that at all. Yeah.
Look, if we want to speak about elephants in the room, we're going to be real here for 20 seconds. If anyone thinks that players don't engage or don't involve themselves in anything of that form of nature, I don't think they're living in the real world. The messaging I think behind it is, we don't encourage you to do it, right? There's lots of awareness and there's lots of education programs around it. But if you are going to do it, a word to the wise, probably don't put it on social media or send it to anyone.
Correct. Exactly.
So I think that will be the messaging going forward. Because I can tell you now, in my opinion, clubs are very, very well aware of what players are doing behind the scenes. And the AFL, if you think for 1 second the AFL does not know what you do in your personal life, you are wrong. They know everything.
Of course they know.
They're involved with the AFP, state police, anyone who you think is of relevance or of importance. The AFL know exactly what's going on, and they just choose. In my opinion, they choose to, try and mitigate the circumstance and try and make sure that not too much gets exposed.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they've got an image to uphold too.
Absolutely.
Clearly. They've got to be seen to keep face. So that's all in the clear now. So Crispy can move on and get on with his life and go and play football like he should be able to. Yep. Now, an interesting one to on-field, not issues, but on-field discussions that need to be had. Now, Carlton. Now, we haven't. No one's really mentioned them in media circles. They've flown under the radar, I've got
some reasons why, but sorry, I do have some reasons why.
They've flown under the radar. So there's a bit of news as well. Harry McKay, which we will get onto in a moment. Carlton's form. I have been very bullish on them this season.
I know you have.
And this is not with it might be with my Carlton hat firmly and truly placed on my head, but I'll get rid of that.
Confidence comes from within.
It does come from within. I think that Carlton's form has been really good this season because of the way that they have managed their players in the early parts, whereas last season and in the early part, the preseason, I thought that we were revved up early.
Ready for like a first up assault.
Yeah. And you don't leave enough for the tank. 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th run in your preparation, which we saw in 2022, the fall off in the back end of the season.
Yeah.
They've managed some players who have had some injury history as well, which I really like. I actually think their form is actually really good. I actually think they're playing within themselves, and I think it might almost be by design.
Yeah, possibly.
Just from what I'm looking at.
I just to touch on what you said, I think there is an element of truth to what you said.
Yeah.
when you mention the part, it's by design. So last year, Carlton were 4th in the comp in scoring from clearances.
I've seen this number.
Do you know what they are this year?
I reckon they're definitely bottom 4.
They're last.
There you go.
They're 18th. So they're second. So this is, I want to speak about their bookends. Obviously, we know the Twin Towers up forward get a lot of credit.
Yes.
They're second for scores when they go inside 50. Massive tick. So efficiency-wise, they're doing very, very well.
And this is the thing. You've got to put that into context as well, is that they might be last for scores from clearances. And people are saying,
some of it could be down to personnel. We need to make that clear.
Exactly
Some of it
right.
could be down to
and,
personnel.
the pressure in the forward line, like the tackles inside forward 50 are not as high, but you've also got to look at context and say, okay, marks inside forward 50, the amount of times they're actually scoring when they do go in there as well.
They're second for efficiency.
Exactly.
Which
so
is
the ball
good.
spends less time in there. So
That's
numbers
right.
aren't going to be as inflated.
Correct. So, and also I think one to mention, and I know you're big off air, and last week or two, you did make mention of Nick Newman and their defense. I don't think they're getting as much credit as what they deserve. So currently, as it stands, they're the second hardest to score against.
Yes, second for points against.
Yes. So their defense isn't getting the plaudits that they deserve. But what that does tell me, this is where the questions for me arise.
Yes.
What that tells me is the pressure on the opposition ball carrier and the movement from the opposition in transition is not being defended. And that, to me, it rests solely on the midfielders, right? So there is not a point of concern. I mean, you said by design. So I think Carlton knew that last year their midfield was strong. They go, look, we need to get to work in other areas of our game.
Yep.
We mentioned personnel. So the last two games, last two games they've missed Walsh and Kennedy.
Yes.
George Hewitt missed a week. So, I mean, I'd love to get a stat on this if someone could actually come up with it. But I do want to work out how many games since last year that Cripps, Chera, Hewitt, Kennedy, and Walsh all played.
From last year to now?
So George Hewitt and Chera both came in 2022.
Yes, correct.
I would love to know in the 23 games or 22 games they played last year and the 4 games thus far.
Yeah.
So out of those 26 or 27 games possible, how many games all 5 midfielders have played together? I don't reckon it'd be more than 8.
I don't think it'd be more than double figures either. I reckon it'd be just double figures if it is.
Yeah.
So, look, you do need rotations to go through there, and I think Carlton do have that. But what I like is that even with those prime movers out, they've still been able to
find a way.
And that's what you've got to do.
It's very encouraging.
That's what you've got to do, and that's not been associated with Carlton for God knows how long.
I do think you touched on, you mentioned something along the lines of not getting as much sort of media coverage or attention.
Yes.
I can understand why. One, because last year they were at the start of they were in a very similar position and they let down.
Yep.
I think people are still wanting to see it. However, I will make a mention. I do think the way they're winning this year compared to last year, this year is a lot more encouraging. And I mentioned their defence earlier. What stood out to me was round 1. That draw against Richmond. Just so people have just to remind them, Richmond had 66 inside 50s in that game.
Ridiculous.
I know Warrington had a couple of out of bounds, but Carlton's defence to me, I saw the light in that round 1 game. I saw how structured they are. Their key tools are interceptors and their ball winners. So I'm a big believer that this year in particular, if your defenders are not ball winners, I don't think you're going to get far. Forget about it.
Yep.
So McGovern, Wiedering, and Lewis Young, massive tick to all 3 of them. I do think McGovern is the key. You have chatted multiple times off air. Mitch McGovern, in my opinion, is the linchpin. He is the key. He 100%. Holds everything. So if he stays fit, he's a massive part to their defence.
Yep.
And he'll take them a long, long way. And look, I think, which we'll touch on in the preview, but I do think tomorrow night against the Crows, they, in my opinion, have their toughest task thus far.
100%.
Not disregarding the matches that they've had previously, the away trip to GWS, the game against Richmond, the game against Geelong, and the game against North Melbourne. But I do believe, given some circumstances in the past, I think tomorrow is their toughest test.
Huge.
And we will find out. We will find out so much. And I'm not going to lie. I would have loved to have seen what happened tomorrow night if Harry McKay didn't play.
Ooh.
And I think we would have learned a lot more about him.
I think so.
Look, he's playing tomorrow. He's in, and
I think so. Yeah, I don't think it would have been too big of an issue because I think we saw last year's sample size with just Charlie Curnow in the team. They were able to knock off Sydney, able to knock off Giants up there as well. So I don't think it would have been too big of an issue. But yeah, we'll go through the tips shortly. But I'm confident.
Any other on-field things you want to talk about?
It does have on-field ramifications. But Harry McKay getting his suspension downgraded to a fine was the right call.
Absolutely was.
Absolutely the right call. I don't know where they came up with medium impact. I don't know how they went from Charlie Ballard whacking Matt Guelphy over the head from medium to low.
Where the ball was nowhere near the contest.
Ball, it was not even in general play. I don't understand. And Tom Lynch has got off. He's concussed Alex Keith.
Yeah.
Pretty much knocked him out, sent him into next Tuesday. And he's got off with nothing. Mind you, he's out for 3 months with a fractured foot. But
true.
I say it time and time again, the MRO, it's just chook lotto.
Yeah.
They need to change something up in there. The problem is the problem is not them looking after the player. That's not the issue. The problem is the gradings. And everything is just subjective. Oh, is this careless or is it intentional? Oh, we don't know.
Put our finger up in the air, whatever way the wind's going.
And they talk about, this matrix that decides, how many weeks and whether it's a fine or not. How they judge low to medium to high to severe impact, I've got absolutely no idea. So you go from medium to low and then from low to medium. I genuinely have no idea. I don't know how they do it.
I don't think anyone does.
It's chook lotto.
You messaged me yesterday
it's
and I just said, mate, I don't care.
And this is on air with work on air at SEM. People ring up and they say, how many weeks will this person get? Is that worth a fine? And I just
Your guess is as good as mine, mate.
I just say, I'm not even going to guess because I don't even know. And the reason for that is because I don't even think the AFL knows.
Yeah.
I've got no idea. So Tom Lynch gets off somehow, some way. I've got no idea. Harry McKay gets off and should have always got off. The kicking accuracy interference technique is what was quoted.
Kate.
I
wonder how many Carlton supporters are going to name their daughters Kate.
Yeah.
K-A-I-T.
K-A-I-T. So
it is what it is.
That was rightfully so as well. And the broadcasters, when it initially happened, also cleared it off. And Harry Sheasel, I think, had thumbs up and said, I'm fine after.
Yep.
So I think that's all said and done and all done and dusted. Speaking of injuries, I just wanted to touch on this. Sam Doherty, 4 to 6 weeks with a meniscus tear, but Mitch Cleary broke it before Carlton. Enough said.
Well, I will say this. You know my stance on this particular topic.
Yes.
I'm not very happy about it.
Yes.
I also did learn that Sam Doherty did not. The injury obviously happened, or he reported some soreness after the game on Friday.
That's correct.
Did you know he went in for surgery yesterday? So the club's known about this for 72 hours.
Well, you're not booking surgery in on the day, are you?
Paul, the injury hasn't been discovered yesterday. He went in for surgery yesterday, and it's taken a news reporter to inform their members and their supporters about an injury.
Yeah,
this is a joke.
Yeah,
it is a joke,
and for that type of player as well.
And then Carlton's done the damage control. Oh, we better make sure that we don't look like gooses here. 5 minutes after Mitch Cleary's posted it and it's gone viral, they then come out and say, Sam Doherty's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. But you knew that because the moment when you were posting it, he was having surgery.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. Don't treat us like fools.
And conversely, Richmond
came out on Monday and explained everything. They said, Toby, this is what's going to happen with Nankervis. This is what's going to happen with Tom Lynch. This is what's going to happen with Jaden Short. So industry leaders, Richmond, and I congratulate them for that. I actually tweeted that as well on the page. They're industry leaders, and I think a lot of other clubs should take note. They don't lie to their members. They're upfront. They realise that their members and their fans are their number one stakeholders and pumping in a lot of revenue, and they think that they're entitled, to know the truth, and they're happy to be honest with it.
The AFL is very on the fence with it all, with their clubs. You've got some clubs that are really open and transparent, like Port Adelaide, Richmond. They'll just tell you straight away, he's not playing. Carlton
is
the opposite
is
way.
The worst of the worst.
Is the opposite way where we don't hear anything until
Here's
a
the
reporter
thing.
says
I just
something.
want to quickly mention before we go on to the round 5 preview.
Yes.
I can tell you now, if Mitch Cleary did not report that, Carlton supporters would only find out today at selection.
I completely agree.
I guarantee
I completely agree.
We would not have known nothing until today.
Completely agree with that. And we look at soccer. Soccer goes down the path, and Premier League goes down the path of you don't know until
soccer, you won't know
before
until the coach gets interviewed an hour before the game, and they ask him, so and so, what's your selection today? And
we know.
This guy didn't come up. He came up. He didn't come up. But in American sports, they're fully transparent.
So it's got to go one way or the other, in my mind. It's either you've just got to announce a team an hour before the game when no one knows.
No one knows nothing.
Or it's open and transparent.
Absolutely.
You have to, because an integrity point of view as well. It's a big thing too.
In my opinion, needs to be real time communication.
Yep. No, exactly
we should
right.
Move on.
Exactly right. Okay, round 5 preview, AD. Gather round. Gather around for gather round.
Yeah,
round 5 of the AFL season.
Sorry.
It is indeed.
Just quickly, I just reckon they may have missed I'm all for it. I love this gather round.
What have they missed?
Well, I'll tell you what they've missed. The Essendon Melbourne game could have had 65,000 at the G. The Collingwood St Kilda game could have had 70 plus. Yeah. I don't want to be that guy, but a good friend of mine made mention of it to me yesterday. Look, I'm sure clubs will be perfectly reimbursed.
Of course, yeah, naturally.
I just reckon
from sports gambling revenue, of course,
which Sydney are against. When it suits,
but they'll take a dime for gather round.
Correct. I'm sure they'll be happy to take a clip of the ticket.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
But, that Essendon Melbourne game and the Collingwood St Kilda game, they could have been massive games at the G. Look, I don't want to go too deep into it because I do think this concept is good. I love it.
Yes.
I love it. I'm all for it. And I congratulate the AFL for using their initiative to do this and to take it to South Australia, which has such a rich history of AFL. So
absolutely,
we'll get stuck into it.
Okay, so games are going to be played at Adelaide Oval, Mount Barker, and Norwood Oval as well. So it all starts Thursday night. Shock horror. Carlton gets prime time. Adelaide versus Adelaide versus Carlton. Thursday night football. Then we've got the Dockers and the Suns, Tigers, Swans, Lions, Roos, Bombers, D's, Port Dogs, Cats versus the Eagles, Giants versus the Hawks, and the Pies versus the Saints to close off round 5. Let's start with the tips. Crows versus Blues. I'll ask you can be first cab off the rank.
This is actually going to be very, very interesting, this Adelaide v Carlton
game.
Indeed.
You've had a keen eye. If you kept a keen eye on the betting?
Yeah, I have. It's sort of fluctuated. Obviously circumstantial to Dockerty's injury and obviously Harry McKay's tribunal case.
Yes.
I think Carlton will win. I do think this is one of their most sternest tests. I think we're going to learn a lot about Carlton tomorrow night.
Sink or swim. Never won at the Adelaide Oval.
Never won. Yeah,
great scenario for the Blues. I think it's a fantastic scenario.
Yep. I'm very certain Carlton will win. I have very little confidence.
Yep.
Without obviously team news hasn't come out yet as we're recording, but I'm going to say Carlton are going to win.
Yep. I'm Blues by 30 points. I think they'll get the job done quite comfortably.
Yep.
I know people are saying this is going to be very close, but I'm going the opposite way. I think with Walsh, Kennedy and Akers coming back in, that team just improves 10, 15%.
The engine room does get bolstered. Yeah, sure thing.
A lot of running power, a lot of contested ball power. I think Carlton will win that by 30. Dockers, Suns, AD?
Another one here, like Fremantle, they've got a lot of adversity at the moment. They're not playing the best. The Gold Coast had that fantastic win against the Cats at their home ground, and they failed to back it up. St Kilda are top of the ladder. Let's put it out there.
Yep.
I'm going to go Fremantle here. Again, the neutral venue is going to... It's going to make things a lot harder to tip if you want to put it in that way.
Yep.
I'm going to stick with Fremantle. Yourself?
I was going with the Dockers.
Oh.
I'm going with the Suns by points.
I've just seen you scribble that.
I've scribbled out the Dockers.
You actually scribbled
I just had the, and people can see it. People can see it here. Suns by 1 point.
One.
I'm going to tip the Suns by 1 point. I've tipped the Suns 3 weeks in a row now. Jared Witt's back is huge.
I thought he did not train today. I'm not sure if you're aware of that.
He didn't try. Okay,
you're going to scribble it back out.
Well, no. I'm still going to tip the Suns because I just can't tip the Dockers with any confidence at the moment.
Don't quote me on it, but I don't think Jared Witt's missed their main.
He was out with
today.
soreness. He was out with soreness. Anyway, regardless,
your confidence is unwavered on the Gold Coast.
Suns by 1 point. I know that the joint's legless, and I'm tipping them by 1 point. Both joints are legless at the moment.
Sure. Game this next one.
Yeah, Tigers versus the Swans.
Friday night. Wow. I like this on Friday night.
A lot of injuries for the Tiggs.
I'll let you sit here and watch. This will be a good game.
Nankervis out. Lynch out. They'll get a couple back in.
Buddy's not playing?
Buddy's not playing, that's correct.
Bit of a leveller?
I actually think Sydney are better without Buddy.
Yeah, not many people want to say it, but I agree.
Swans by 25 for mine.
You're going to tip the Swannies by 25. Look, Richmond... Richmond are 1 out of 5 in covering the spread without Toby, their ruckman.
Are they really?
Mate, they are. I know. I'm going to go with the
He's
Swans.
so important to them.
He is. Tom Lynch out. I suspect Jack Rewalt comes back in.
Yes, and Koch.
Trent Cotchin?
Yeah, they were both managed.
He will not be the sub.
Trent Cotchin was managed last week in their loss to the Doggies, so you would assume he'd come back in.
I'm going to go Swans.
Okay. Yep. Swans are Lions, Roos.
Yeah.
Obviously
Brisbane. Don't know the severity of it, but Brisbane get a chance to string 2 wins in a row here pretty easily.
This is the perfect line setup, the flat track bully setup.
It's the 60-point plus setup.
Beautiful. I got Lions by 40.
Yeah, okay.
I think the Riz will give some sort of a yelp, but Lions are way too classy. Yep. Bombers versus D's. Intriguing game, this one. I've gone the D's by 55. I think they're going to wipe the floor.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, we mentioned just before the Brisbane game, the Melbourne-Brisbane game in round 2, the Melbourne's interstate record, albeit against interstate teams. This is against another Melbourne team.
Correct.
I'm pretty sure Melbourne wins here.
Yep.
However, I'm not. I think Essendon might give them a run. They might stick with them for a couple of quarters. Melbourne's sixth gear might click in and. They might go whoosh. Yep,
very hard to stop. Isn't another intriguing game?
Oh, yeah.
Port's just hit a bit of form now against the Doggies. Yeah, both teams come into this game with winning form, and at the start of the year, everyone was scratching their heads thinking, what the hell's going on at both of these clubs? I've gone Port by 10 points. I think it's going to be a cracker.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've been critical of both clubs, evidently.
And rightfully so.
Rightfully so. Evidently the Bulldogs, after their first 2 weeks, and they've come out and they've won their last 2 and shown a lot of grit and a lot of character, which is fantastic for their members and their whole club. I mean, they're producing what we knew, and likewise as well. Port Adelaide last week, that win against Sydney, let's not understate it.
Oh, fantastic.
That was an absolutely massive result for the Power.
Huge.
I'm going to go Port Adelaide here, very, very close.
Yep.
This might be another 3 or 4 point game.
Okay, all right. Another nail biter, another thriller.
Yeah. Saturday night at in Adelaide.
For the Port Power. Cats versus Eagles, I'm Cats by 41. I think this will be
there's nothing really interesting to say here. Nah. Geelong should win by however much they want to win by.
A long way. Yeah. Giants versus Hawks, I've gone Giants by 14 points. The Hawks were really disappointing in that second half against
Geelong. They faded away in that third quarter. What Geelong last week piled on 65 points. The Hawks did not score in the third quarter. Is that right?
I don't think I think they kicked. How many they kick after? I think they kicked 9. They scored 9 points after halftime.
Great.
Yeah, brilliant.
Huge. Look, I think I'm pretty sure GWS win this. I don't think GWS's record is a true reflection of how well they're actually playing. What are they, 2-2? 1-3? They beat
Adelaide.
Yep, in round 1.
Lost to West Coast, lost to Carlton, lost to Western. Okay, so they are 1-3.
So they're 1-3. Yeah. I think their record improves to 2-3 after this week. They'll take care of the Hawks.
Yep, completely agree. Last game, what a way to finish off gather round. Pies versus the Saints. This is going to be an absolute cracker.
Do you know how long I've mulled over this game?
Saints flying,
Jesus.
Pies without a ruck. I have tipped the Pies just.
St Kilda's going to get their sternest test in terms of teams that like to move the ball. Absolutely. With all due respect to St Kilda's previous 4 opponents, they should be winning all 4 of them, or not.
Well, given what
should be.
Yeah.
Let's not undersell what they're doing. They are undermanned St
at the moment. Correct.
And we mentioned last week they're doing very well with what they have in front of
them. Spot on.
I'm big on the Pies. I am since the start of the year. Not just in a round-to-round basis, just on a premiership basis. I think Collingwood, despite not having an allocated ruckman, I think the Pies take care of them. I do think this is going to be very close. I'm thinking not more than 2 goals in it. I'm going to go the Pies. And you know what? We might be talking next week about the Collingwood of 2022 and how they got through a close game. This could be one of them.
Yes. Well, they know how to do it.
By the way, can we stop associating them with, I'm not sitting here trying to, but we need to stop associating Collingwood with that team that wins games by less than 2 goals. I think they're a lot better than that. Let's put some respect on their name. And I expect them to bounce back after a dismal performance last week against the Lions.
Where we'll find out very, very soon. I would love... Just before we wrap up, I'd love for the scenario to be, as much as I think the Pies will just get over the line.
I know where you're going with this, and I agree.
Carlton win.
50,000. I know what you're going to say.
Saints win. Both teams undefeated into next week. 50, would not surprise me if that occurs.
50,000 next Sunday. Let's not look too far ahead. There'll be 50,000. I can tell you now.
You know, I'm big on that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Look, it's romantic. It's good to romanticize it and all that sort of stuff.
I love that sort of stuff.
You know, I think Collingwood might have something to say, and maybe Adelaide might have something to say when they verse the Blues.
We will find out very, very shortly. So that is a wrap. Weekend Grill number 4 is in the chamber. It's locked and loaded. We're all done and dusted.
Yeah.
Like, subscribe, follow, join up, YouTube. What are we? YouTube, Twitter,
all that business.
Instagram, TikTok. You can see it all at the bottom there. Click
It'll
all that.
there.
AD, pleasure as
Happy
usual.
Easter to
The Orthodox.
The Orthodox community. So,
yes.
For those who celebrate it. So, yeah.
Yes, so enjoy that. Hope your teams win this weekend. Hope you've been entertained, as I'm sure you and I both are when we come out and do this.
We're entertained every week.
Very good. Weekend Grill, that's done and dusted. Again, like, subscribe, follow us on all the socials. Have a great weekend and hope your team wins, guys.
Thanks, guys.